Another day and another death.
Well, another tragic fire, and unfortunately in the same suburb as yesterday when a young girl lost her life. Today, an elderly man.
Bela Molnar, a 97-year-old Hungarian war veteran, was trapped in this Woodbury home. His grandson, 15-year-old Kieran, and son Bill escaped to the roadside, both helpless.
He called out for help, mate, yeah. And that's the hardest thing that'll ever happen, and I don't wish that on anyone.
The house was well alight. There was just no way that firefighters or anyone else could get in there.
But this tragedy could have been worse.
Come here, Tony. This guy is the guy I owe my life to.
Neighbour Tony Williams alerted the family even before the smoke alarms.
Looked out the window and the lounge room was on fire. So I rang 000, come over and knocked on Bill's door, belled it on his window and then grabbed my hose and went out the back.
Investigators are now trying to work out what went wrong.
There's no evidence at this point to indicate that it's suspicious.
I normally check him, but last night I went to a party and come back home. I looked through the door, he was asleep. I didn't turn to check to see if the heater was on, and I think that's where it started.
In 48 hours, there's been 3 similar deaths. In the same suburb, less than 500 metres from today's blaze, a family is still coming to grips with losing 5-year-old Kyra Hamilton Welsh.
I could hear the mother screaming, I could hear the father screaming. As I've looked over the back fence, I could see the father running around in the pool area trying to find or look for his daughter.
While a 50-year-old man died in hospital following a fire in Hamilton.
This weekend, we've been having a fire in a home, on average, one every hour.
Fire crews say it's been a horror winter. Last year there were 7 fatal house fires. So far this year, there's been 11.
Most people don't think of having a home escape plan. When they go to work, they expect one, but they never expect to have a fire in a home.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
Just a bit of an idea to get to show the people of the community that the local businesses here that are here to support them. It's great to get them back out in the street as well.
We have to convince them of the fact that we're serious and that the money is either there or could be on the way.
Bonfire night was back for one night only, and the Lord Mayor helped to get the party started. Within seconds, the pile of timber was well alight and flames were shooting into the sky, creating a spectacular sight. But as the bonfire grew in strength, the crowd was forced to scatter on one side. The wind also picked up, fanning the flames, while ash began raining down. Thankfully, no one was seriously injured. It didn't take long for the fire to die down. A water tanker helped to keep it under control. Onlookers were then able to enjoy the warmth and gazed into the glow of the smouldering embers. Organised by God's House, a local church, Newcastle's biggest bonfire raised money for the homeless, with donations from individuals and businesses going to the Salvation Army and St Vincent de Paul. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
The Jets enjoyed a day off today after a tiring journey home from Adelaide, but it's a trip to the doctor which will decide Nikolai Topor-Stanley's immediate playing future. Injuring his knee just before half-time in the season opener, it forced the big defender from the field, and his coach knows an extended timeout would be less than ideal.
The early indications are that it may not be as serious as we thought, but we'll stay reserved on that comment.
The Jets began their campaign full of running on Friday night, followed by some ugly work from Red's teammates. Paul Reed's effort on Casey Weirman threatened to get right out of hand. Half-time helped calm all that down, before Newcastle started the second stanza much like it did the first. It was Adelaide, though, who thought it had found the winner. But the offside flag was up, saving the Jets. They'll host the Melbourne Heart next Friday in their first home game for the season.
5-year-old Kyra Hamilton Welsh, 56-year-old Max Blizzard and 97-year-old Bella Molnar all perished in separate house fires in the Hunter across the weekend. Just this morning, another home went up in flames. The family of 4 who lives in this property at Killabin Bay at Lake Macquarie weren't home when it caught alight just after 7:30. They'd left an hour earlier to drive to Sydney Airport to catch a plane to Fiji. The homeowner's brother, Danny Fletcher, says it's a blessing his brother Matthew, wife and 2 children weren't inside.
He's pretty lucky actually because my brother's deaf and he's blind, so if he'd have been around he probably wouldn't have heard it or seen it, so it's pretty lucky really.
Family friend Melanie Pickles lost everything as well. All her possessions were being stored in the Fletcher's house while she builds a home of her own nearby.
I said to my son this morning when we heard the sirens, I said, I hope that's not another house fire. And then to be told it was, you know, your best friends, and then to realise that it was our stuff as well. So it's come as a real shock.
Firefighters say the blaze appears to have started in the garage, and they're asking people to use extreme caution while heating their homes.
Heating appliances, make sure they're switched off, don't have them too close to combustibles. Just careful in general housekeeping.
Paul Lobb, NBN News. The upgrading of Main Road 301 from Raymond Terrace to Dungog is considered critical in the next few years, especially if the Tilligra Dam goes ahead. And Dungog Mayor Glenn Wall used today's candidates' debate on roads in the Patterson electorate, organised by motoring group the NRMA, to call for it to be upgraded.
It's the main access route from Dungog into Raymond Terrace. It's got a big traffic count on it as it is now. If the dam does proceed, then we're going to have a lot of additional heavy vehicle movements, plus a lot of other tourism movements, and for those reasons alone, it needs to be addressed.
Sitting member Bob Baldwin told those who attended the forum that a coalition government would upgrade the road.
The roads package being put forward by the Coalition is $71 million in the electorate of Patterson. That includes $20 million for passing lanes for the Buckets Way, $20 million for the roadworks between Dungog and Raymond Terrace.
The Gillard Labor government has been committing record amounts of funding to infrastructure spending in this area, and we support a sustainable population, and an important part of that is proper infrastructure.
90% of the people that we polled in Patterson feel that roads is an important issue and could influence their vote at the election. So really is a big issue. We haven't heard enough about it in our opinion. So this is our attempt to make sure that roads does get a bit of a run in the federal campaign.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Just 12 days out from the federal election, and the Liberal candidate for Shortland has finally opened her campaign office. Deborah Narayanan today hit the streets with her family and denied she's left her run too late.
I still think that we can sprint to the end.
And while Liberal Senator Helen Coonan had the candidate's credentials down pat, the former Communications Minister struggled to get one point across.
Yes, well, I'm here to launch the Liberal campaign for Shortland, Deborah Narayanan.
Senator Coonan admits the party faces a tough task to beat Labor incumbent Jill Hall, who holds the seat by a 15% margin. But she says Ms Narayanan, a solicitor and mother of 5, will fight for her constituents.
People do get tired in politics. I think Ms Hall's been here for about 12 years. Somebody new, enthusiastic, but of the community is critical.
3 weeks ago, NBN News tried to contact Deborah Narayanan for a comment. We were told she was too busy and not interested. Now she's on leave and says she's focusing on campaigning in the Shortland electorate.
We're definitely the underdog in the electorate, there's no doubt about that. But look, I intend to work hard, particularly over the next 12 days.
Among her priorities, improving aged care, childcare, as well as GP and hospital access. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News. Across our most exclusive suburbs, millions of dollars are being paid for homes or land to create high-density projects. Ray Watterson knows that all too well, with a storm brewing over his back fence. 8 residential units will be demolished and the 3,000 square metre block, nestled between Wrightson Avenue and Memorial Drive, will be subdivided into 5 lots. A group of residents is concerned about stormwater problems due to a natural watercourse through the site, increased traffic and a loss of privacy.
And we don't want to see a gully filled in to provide a road that will be effectively a dam, making flooding worse for the neighbourhood.
A green corridor currently creates a barrier between neighbouring homes and the site. Residents believe that will go.
There's about 30 big, long-established trees that are just going to be cut down to make way for a driveway.
The development application goes before Newcastle Council tomorrow night. Staff have recommended approval of the proposed demolition and 5-lot subdivision, subject to conditions. Jane Goldsmith, NBN News.
Given his recent form, it's hard not to dig the Mad Dog. But with 4 games remaining this season, the Knights have so far resisted tabling a deal for him to play on.
It's in their hands now, and it's up to them what my future holds.
There was nothing but gifts from Akila Uarte yesterday, who handed the game's oldest player his 81st career try, leaving him 1 short of Tamana Tahu's club record. But it's reaching the 200-game club that's motivating McDougall, and that means playing 1 more year until he knows what his future holds. He'll take what he can get.
I said to Aku the other day I might not be as generous next time I get in the Open, but we'll see.
Fellow veteran Steve Simpson's career also remains in limbo, with his potential return pushed back another week.
As a club, both with Dukes and Simo, we're giving the appropriate respect for them. Dukes obviously come out and said what he wants to do, and Simo's been mulling over a few things in the last couple of weeks.
The coach is sweating on more immediate concerns, such as the fitness of Jared Mullen, who's in real danger of missing Sunday's match in Auckland due to injured ribs.
Particularly how Jared's been playing the last couple of weeks, it's a massive one. So look, all we have to do is be guided by our medical team and see what they say.
Ben Cross is free to play after avoiding suspension despite a careless high tackle.
Realistically, I'm probably a couple of days at least away from knowing, if I can train, let alone play.
Although wet weather washed out other pro-ams scheduled for this week, there was nothing but sunny skies for Morissette's big event over the weekend. The joint leader heading into the final day, Sydney's David Patterson, maintained his good form to take the trophy by 2 strokes. In basketball, the Maitland Mustangs are through to the finals of the Waratah Australian League for the first time after beating Parramatta by a point. That win actually knocked the Newcastle Hunters out of the finals, while their women's team was also eliminated. In contrast, the Newcastle North Stars remain on track for another National Ice Hockey League title after belting Canberra. The 12-2 result meant there was little doubt on the scoreboard, while the home side also won the fight in a points decision. And Hamilton has given all clubs hope in Newcastle and Hunter Rugby after handing Merewether its first defeat of the season. Down 10-3, the Hawks found another gear, with winger Monty Symes grabbing a double before half-time, and he made sure Greens fans knew all about it, as the Hawks went on to win 35-17. A healthy campaign promise.
The Gillard Labor government has committed to funding a new GP super clinic in the Raymond Terrace area.
$7 million for a mini hospital just like this.
There's no question about its impact on this community in providing good integrated healthcare, podiatrists, psychologists, physiotherapists.
The Nelson Bay Super Clinic was opened 3 months ago. Since then, staff have seen 2,500 patients.
On Sundays, most of the patients that would have gone to the hospital are now coming here.
But some are seeing red. Only 13 of the 31 promised super clinics have been delivered since 2007.
The plan is going to plan, and I'm very pleased with the outcome.
The opposition doesn't think so. It's highlighting other measures.
The problem is with their GP super clinics, it picks on one community, one service, yet the whole of the community needs adequate servicing.
Tonight there'll be a debate on health in Raymond Terrace, but only the Greens and Labor will attend. Mr Baldwin says his position is already clear.
It's a cause geotechnical engineer Graham Holt won't abandon, even while battling cancer. For 4 years, he's been investigating the geology of the proposed Tilligra Dam site.
It struck me that there was an awful lot of concealment of fact going on here, and the question was why.
He says Hunter Water documents released through an FOI cast doubt on the projected cost of $477 million to be covered by ratepayers.
The site is a complex geological site, and it will cost extra money to build a safe dam on that site. This latest round of Freedom of Information data has shown that the proponent knew about that before the dam was even announced by the then Premier Yema.
He believes extra engineering support work will be needed due to fault lines and leakage issues.
One can build a dam anywhere if you throw enough money at it. It's as simple as that.
It took the No Tilligra Dam Group 18 months to access the geological report and other documents after Hunter Water initially refused.
There's an old outdated report that recommended some more work, and we've done all that work. We've spent over $2 million in geotechnical investigations, and we've got the best people in the world. And the dam's safe, and there won't be any risk of cost blowouts.
The port's new coal loader isn't even operating at capacity yet, but the Newcastle Coal Infrastructure Group has just secured funding to build another. The consortium has already spent just over $1 billion getting one up and running and will spend another $900 million on the expansion, with work to begin almost immediately for up to 600 construction personnel.
Involves building another dump station, some additional rail lines, a few additional conveyors, a third stacker reclaimer and increasing our stockyard storage place, a second outbound ship loading stream with a second buffer bin and a second ship loader.
The port's fourth loader will take NCIG's capacity from 30 million tonnes a year to 53 million, and combined with Port Waratah's expansion, Newcastle will be exporting 180 million tonnes of coal a year by 2013, shipping it out as fast as the mines can dig it up.
Mines are expanding, rail networks are expanding, and from that there's a lot of generation of work, employment, both in the service industries to support the mines, the railway network, as well as the terminals, and all those services add to important economic benefits to the Hunter Valley.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's a walk Steve Simpson has watched several teammates do before him, but that didn't make it any easier. Flanked by fellow Knights, he choked back the words he'd fought so hard to avoid.
Yeah, obviously here today, just it's a tough decision, but I'm going to retire today from rugby league.
Like many of the club's greats, the nature of his exit wasn't of his choosing, with a knee injury finally stopping a man few opponents could.
Yeah, I don't think I could come back and play the footy I wanted to play. I think that was a big thing in my mind. I don't want to come back and be a passenger.
Although he's been robbed of a fitting farewell on field, the Maitland-born and Singleton-bred back rower achieved more in his career than he ever dreamed of, and built a reputation with few peers.
I don't think anyone epitomises Newcastle like Steve Simpson.
His stats read 216 top-grade games for Newcastle, including a premiership, along with a host of state and Australian honours. But his greatest trait came off-field. In an age where scandal and bad headlines in league are commonplace, Steve Simpson can walk away with nothing but praise from fans, teammates and a grateful club.
He won't wander too far from our club. We anticipate an ongoing involvement with him, and he'll certainly be involved with the old boys.
You know, the show of support that the boys have here right now just shows such a high regard he's held in at this particular place.
Jim Callanan, NBN News. The rare show of emotion from Steve Simpson said it all as he called an end to a career spanning 3 decades.
Yeah, I lost a little bit of sleep over the last few nights, I suppose, worrying about today, but it's tough to walk away and not with unfinished business, but without playing the game on your terms.
And teammates also found it hard to swallow.
You wouldn't meet a nicer bloke off the field. Once he stepped on that field, you wouldn't want to be playing against him. So he was one of the best I've ever seen.
It's something I'll definitely be telling my kids, that I was lucky enough to play and pack down next to Steve Simpson, that's for sure.
A chronic knee injury ultimately wore Simpson down, a far cry to how things all began back in 1999. Then, still a teenager, Simpson soon became a top-grade regular. He played alongside some greats including Andrew Johns and Danny Badiris while carving out his own fearsome reputation.
I think you'd ask those guys who you'd pick first in your team each week, and I think Simo will be probably up there in the first one or two.
A premiership winner in 2001. Simpson was named the club's best player twice on his way to becoming a State of Origin regular. With 13 Origins and 7 Tests for his country, it was a 12-year career few have matched, and each game he made a mark.
His toughness, mate, I think that's probably most players' view of Simo who have played with him over the years.
I used to love watching the opposition when they were lined up against us and seeing, a little bit of fear and a little bit of trepidation in their eyes when they knew that he was running at them.
As humble as he was hard, Simpson has no regrets, with a bright future ahead and a legacy that will endure longer than his playing days.
I just like to think that every time I played, I give everything I had. And if I can be remembered for that, that'd be great.
Jim Callanan, NBN News.
About a month ago, Rodney Buff's bike was pinched from outside the house he shares with other intellectually disabled people. Apart from his friends and his job at a sheltered workshop, his bike was everything to him.
He saved up his pennies. He did a great job in saving enough to get the bike in the first place, and then some mongrel came along and just pinched it, straight out from under him, and it was quite devastating to him.
When Bullaroo bike shop owner Ray Carter heard what had happened, he stepped in with a new set of wheels. He also threw in a lock to make sure this bike doesn't go missing. And Rodney says he'll be back riding along his favourite route tomorrow.
Down the shops and that, yeah.
We've all got it in our hearts to help somebody out, and if we can help just one person and it just flows on from there, basically.
After a handshake between the two mates, Rodney loaded his wheels into his carer's car, the proud owner of a new bike, and with some faith in his fellow man restored. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
It's a positive sight for any Jets fan. Tarek Elrich in full stride. The midfielder has finally recovered from a groin injury that dogged him last year, and after undergoing surgery, he's feeling confident he won't be troubled by it again.
I've spoken to a lot of people about it. Adam McDougall from the Knight, spoken to a few ex-Socceroos in Paul Ocon and Harry Kill about it, and they all said it's done them well, and they haven't had any pain.
Elrich is tipped to come off the bench this Friday night in the Jets' first home game of the season against A-League newcomers Melbourne Heart. And in an added challenge for the 23-year-old, his comeback coincides with the holy month of Ramadan. The proud Muslim will fast between sunrise and sunset, but not on game day.
There's people out there that don't even have food, and they're stuck out there out in the cold or out in the heat, and running around trying to find a little bit of food. So, we got it easy. So, for me, it's a small sacrifice.
Meanwhile, there'll be a battle for positions up front with striker Sean Rooney out for up to 6 weeks after tearing a calf muscle at training yesterday. Labino Haliti and Sasho Petrovski are expected to fight for his spot. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
So far it's been quite amazing. They give you a very good insight into the daily life of what you're interested in. For myself, it's flight attending.
By 2020, the Asia Pacific region will be the #1 aviation market in the world, and that means there's opportunities for students moving forward.
Coffs Harbour Marine Rescue received a call from the longline fishing boat Menray advising that they'd gone ashore on a beach somewhere near Coffs Harbour. The integrity of the vessel was maintained at all times, so there was no fuel spills or oil spills at all.
House fires have claimed 3 lives in the Hunter in the past week, but thankfully Steve Boskill wasn't home last night when his Marks Point waterfront property went up in flames.
It's just good fortune, yeah. It's a good job I wasn't sleeping in the place. I think I would have gone with it.
Mr Boskill was visiting friends a suburb away when a neighbour phoned him about 9 p.m. He arrived home to see the fire taking hold.
I couldn't believe it, just massive fire engines and a huge ball of flame.
The blaze threatened to ignite adjoining homes, badly scorching the side wall of one house and cracking windows and melting blinds on the other. Against the odds, firefighters managed to stop it spreading. They're yet to work out how it started, but say people need to be aware that appliances can cause fires, especially in winter.
It's colder, we use more power, so we have more appliances plugged in, and we put more load on circuits.
Mr Boskill may have lost his home, but he's grateful his dogs, Tiberius and Kelpie, were safely with him when the fire broke out. Paul Lobb, NBN News.
The Premier wasn't about to get her hands dirty for the Hunter Expressway's sod turning. The $1.7 billion project is jointly funded by the state and Commonwealth, a fact Labor politicians were sure to highlight just 10 days out from the federal poll.
What we see today with this sod turn is the fact of, the reality of, the partnership between our national government and our state government.
Suggestions local Liberal MP Bob Baldwin played a role in getting the project off the ground were treated with contempt. The expressway will link the F3 to the New England Highway and include 40 kilometres of dual carriageways, 53 bridges and 6 interchanges. Once the expressway is complete, it's expected to take up to 30,000 vehicles off the New England Highway every day and reduce travel times between Newcastle and Branxton by around half an hour. As well as alleviating traffic congestion in Thornton, Maitland and Rutherford, the roadway is expected to have other benefits.
800 construction jobs. Of course, as a result of that, there will be many more multiplied jobs, indeed 2,400.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
Yes, we have a transport steering committee that involves all of the major state government agencies as well as Newcastle Council. That work is underway.
It's happened before. In the last decade, Chinese-built coal wagons arrived on our shores, and earlier this year, 30 workers were laid off from Bradken's rail maintenance workshop at Hamilton North, being told the work could be done cheaper in China. Now, with the state government announcing plans to build 160 new train carriages, 1,000 buses and 6 new ferries in the next decade, trade unions are worried the work will go offshore.
The big threat to thousands of apprenticeships is if the state government takes the low-cost, lowest common denominator approach and sends this work offshore.
Union bosses and hunter manufacturers will write to the Premier to push their case.
The political timetable is a bit uncertain this time, so we don't want projects to be delayed any longer than necessary. So we're very keen to go forward right now and to see if we can't win this work in the next few months.
The Premier's response was predictable.
When we do these sorts of infrastructure projects, when we do these sorts of procurement processes, we always have a very clear mind towards their capacity to generate jobs right here in New South Wales.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
So let's come to the worst section of road that we have in that particular area. It's in the centre of Toronto. It's a very complex section of road. There's a lot of intersections.
The monitors were on, but checks on our truckies didn't result in fines today. Advice was the only thing handed over.
Just want to talk to you about our driver fatigue management program. There's some information in there for you and your boss.
Nearly 600 drivers passed through the 12 Mile Creek checking station, everyone reminded about their road rights and responsibilities. The state government is hoping a new kit will convince truckies to take a break. Some are already heeding the message.
Very dangerous. You lack of concentration and that and causes accidents. If something unforeseen happens, you haven't got your wits to control the vehicle.
Soon, there'll be no excuses. WorkCover and the RTA now have the right to audit trucking companies.
There's enough research about fatigue to point to the fact that this is a very significant issue.
The Transport Workers Union is welcoming the changes. It says trucks cause around 200 deaths on our roads every year. And those behind the wheel warn that could continue.
With any fatigue management, I think they need to get it correct in every state. Like New South Wales RTA will say something different to the South Australian transport.
Nat Wallace, NBN News.
These images of Lincoln Hall being rescued after he was left for dead on Mount Everest were shown around the world in 2006. Mr. Hall was on his way down from the summit when he suffered a form of altitude sickness called cerebral edema, which is almost always fatal.
Probably the most miraculous thing about this whole event was that I didn't die. Certainly I did a good imitation, but there was obviously a bit of life in there, and I came back from that.
Against the odds, he survived a night on the mountain without oxygen or protection from the freezing conditions. He suffered vivid hallucinations and remembers the night completely.
Somehow in the middle of the night, I came I became very lucid, and I realised where I was, which was still very high on Everest.
The ordeal left him with frostbitten hands and ended his mountaineering career, but it also launched a new one. Today, Mr. Hall used his miraculous tale of survival to inspire and motivate Lake Macquarie's business sector.
Surviving for me, not to be inspirational, but it has come that way. And I thought, well, I've got to lift my game here. And so when people want me to talk about my experience, even though I've done it so many times, I'm very happy to keep telling the story.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
A lack of goals is one of the Jets' main concerns, so the loss of Shaun Rooney leaves a solid hole up front, especially with the arrival of Chinese striker Zhang Shu being held up by the Department of Immigration. As usual, coach Branko Kalina was playing his cards close to his chest when it comes to a replacement, but Labino Haliti and Sasho Petrovski loom as the front-runners.
First game at home, and everyone's, this week there's been a bit of tension at training as well. People want spots in the team, and they're hungry to show Branko and the coaching staff that they want to play.
Despite limping off with a knee injury against Adelaide, Nikolai Top-Or-Stanley is still a chance of facing Melbourne Heart on Friday.
Yeah, Nikolai's been off for most of the week. He came back today, did a little bit, so let's see how he pulls up.
The clash with the A-League newcomers marks the return to Newcastle of former captain Matt Thompson, but the Jets won't be rolling out the welcome mat.
You always respect the opposition, and you certainly would be foolish not to respect Melbourne Heart and the players that they have, including Tomo.
Meanwhile, Jets management says it intends to fight a charge of team misconduct, resulting from a scuffle in the clash with Adelaide. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. Following in the footsteps of 3 generations of champions, Aaron Morris has got big shoes to fill, but he's already proving to be more than just a chip off the old block. In his third year on the National Superstock 600 circuit, the 18-year-old has claimed pole at every race, and with 1 round to go, sits 16 points clear at the top of the table. The final 4 races will be held in Queensland next weekend, and Team Morris has a simple plan.
I have to keep consistent, but the plan is, I don't have to win the races. Don't have to win the races to win the championship, but I would like to if I can. It's just, I'll take it easy, I'll see how it goes, see how I'm feeling on the day.
As a former national champion, Graham has high hopes for his son. He believes Aaron has more natural talent and athletic ability, and a career on the world stage is well within reach.
There's no reason why he can't. It's just like a lot of things in this sport, that you need the right decision made at the right time and a little bit of luck your way.
Aaron and his family share a special bond, but there's no pressure to succeed.
Dad never pushes me, he just says go as fast as you can and do what you can do, so that's the thing. There's no point in pushing and crashing down the road. It's just stay consistent and so you end up with championships.
I'm just happy to watch on the sidelines, although it's more nerve-wracking on the sidelines than it is out there, so yeah, I get very nervous with him racing.
Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.
We've had a look at a couple of premises as well as some areas on the street, but we haven't had the chance to talk to the victim yet.
The Fix Our City group is furious after Christina Keneally made this comment about the release of a scoping study into the Wickham Transport interchange.
Yes, we have a transport steering committee that involves all of the major state government agencies as well as Newcastle Council. That work is underway.
That work actually began last September and its results were supposed to be released in March, then July. Fix Our City claims state Labor has simply lost interest in the electorate.
They're not going to do anything regarding investing money in Newcastle. Simple as that. I mean, they've just ignored all of the meetings that have taken place, all of the consultation that's taken place, all of the surveys that have been done, and really you would say that the Premier just does not have an interest in Newcastle.
Fed up with waiting, the group is taking action.
We're going to go for freedom of information, which is now called a GIPA under the current legislation, and we'll ask for the information to be released to the community.
Even if the request isn't successful, the information should be made public next month when it's handed to the opposition during an estimates hearing. Meanwhile, a source has told Hunter Business Chamber the study is finished.
We're told that the scoping study has been completed and that the cost of that scoping study and the changes that need to be made to the city are somewhere along the lines of the $200 million.
Madeline Bond, NBN News.
The four-car garage behind a block of flats on Brooks Street was a crumpled mess today. It caught alight about 2 a.m. after a small explosion that woke residents of the block and their neighbours.
Just quickly took hold and red flames shooting up right high above the house.
We thought that the whole building was burning and it was really scary.
Nuria and Mariano's car was one of two badly damaged in the fire. The intense heat charred and cracked windscreens and melted side mirrors. Fibro walls also shattered, releasing asbestos dust. Police and fire crews were forced to wear protective clothing today as they tore through the crumpled iron before starting their investigation. They believe the fire may have been deliberately lit. A fortnight ago, this car was torched by vandals just 2 blocks away. Shocked neighbours say they'd seen the recent run of residential fires on the news.
The night before we sat and we just said, you can't believe it, that it can happen. And then the very next night, for that to happen in the middle of the night, that was what was so scary.
Paul Lobb, NBN News.
Michelle Finlay drops her son Thomas at school every morning. Routine is everything to children with autism, but their lives are about to be turned upside down. The base school at Shortland and a satellite classroom at Tyers Hill, both run by Aspect, are being moved.
The aid time that our children would get in a Department of Education or a Catholic school site isn't what the Aspect can actually give those children in our schools.
The move is due in part to the federal government's education revolution. The work on new halls and classrooms mean there's no room for the autistic children. Tim Austin's son Joe is one of those who'll be forced to move to a new temporary base at Gateshead West, and that only has a 12-month lease.
They're very brave kids, and it's these brave kids we owe as a society going forward to provide some stable future.
Ironically, Hunter Aspect has been given $850,000 to complete similar works, but without a permanent base, they can't spend the money and it expires in September next year. Newcastle MP Sharon Grierson is spruiking the non-existent school hall for the Hunter School for Children with Autism on one of her campaign flyers.
Where is the education revolution unless we take everyone with us?
The Education Department says it did offer Aspect space to use its federal funding at Thornton Public School, but it was turned down. Parents, meanwhile, want a standalone regional centre to give their children much-needed stability. Kate Mitchell, NBN News.
This is a road that needs upgrading. We have serious congestion. We've also had recent accidents. We need an upgrade and we call on the state government to consider upgrading this Kerry Street road.
The world can be a confusing and lonely place for a child with autism, but not when you have a best mate. Phoebe, a 15-month-old Labrador, is in training to become an autism assistance dog with not-for-profit organisation Righteous Pups. She's been brought to Newcastle to meet 4-year-old Jake Forrester. Their connection is instant and affectionate.
He's happy, he's relaxed, he loves her, so even that's just a good start for Jake.
That's what we call the magic. That makes it all worthwhile, is seeing the dog start to bond with the child, and it's something of beauty.
Jake was diagnosed with an autism spectrum disorder at 2.5. His parents have used a range of therapies with success, but they hope an autism assistance dog will fill another piece of the jigsaw puzzle, helping his behaviour as well as keeping him safe.
We sort of live in constant fear of Jake escaping as well. Autistic kids don't tend to have any sort of perception of danger.
Dogs like Phoebe are trained in search and rescue, along with a range of other skills. But they don't come cheap, and Apex has stepped in to help the Forresters fund a dog.
$29,000 for a young family with other siblings has been an impossible task. So as a club, we presented it to each other, we spoke about it, and we thought we've got to have a go.
Jake's parents don't expect pet therapy to be an autism cure-all, but believe it's an option worth exploring.
So the results are there in the kids.
Trying to minimise mistakes, and hopefully we can
gain some points on the other boats around us and try and get in a good position for the medal race.
Following months of speculation, there was no happier player than Scott Duro at night's training this morning.
The weight of the world's really been lifted off my shoulders. It's been ongoing for the last couple of months now. It's been well documented, I guess, and really excited to have it finalised, and can't wait to get over there.
His first choice was always to stay with Newcastle, but as of next season, Duro will play his trade in France, a country he's never visited. He'll link up with several ex-NRL players, as well as former Knights assistant and new Catalans coach Trent Robinson. The 23-year-old hasn't ruled out a return to Australia, but for now, Jared Mullen's injured ribs will provide him with a much-needed return to first grade.
It looks like I'm going to get it this weekend, so I'm even more excited about that. These are my mates here, and I've had so many good times with them, and it'll be really nice to be able to go out on a high.
The journey to New Zealand represents one of the game's toughest road trips, but it's the kind of travel Duro will face every second week in the English Super League. Mullen believes his good mate is up for the challenge.
Scotty Duro's been playing very well in reserve grade, and he gets his shot again, and he's keen as anyone out there for the weekend, so I'm excited to see how he goes.
Meanwhile, Mullen is hoping to be back for the big clash with Brisbane next Friday. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News. They've enjoyed plenty of success at the Broadmeadows Stadium and still know how to ham it up for the camera. But this weekend, former NBL stars Scott McGregor and Butch Hayes will be all business when they step onto main court. On Saturday, their Mustangs will continue an impressive run toward the final of the Waratah League when they face the Sydney Comets in the semi.
We started the year off pretty bad. We were 0-3, and then we changed a few things, and I think we went on a 12-2 run, and then we just stayed pretty consistent.
The Mustangs are 1-1 against the Comets this season, but the boys from Maitland are high on confidence. McGregor is predicting a lucky 13-point win.
We had one of the guys in the team, he had a dream, or he talks in his sleep, and he woke up and saying, "It's our time, boys, it's our time." So, you have these feelings, and I'm going with 13.
Undoubtedly one of the game's greatest ambassadors in the Hunter, Hayes believes this Maitland side has finally adopted a winning attitude.
They're going to go and play another 10 or 15 years of just great basketball, but they got it now. They understand it, and they know what it takes to win.
At 47, his competitive spirit still burns.
It's just nice to be around basketball. I just love it.
The Hunter has 4 teams competing this weekend, with Newcastle represented in the men's youth division and Maitland also sending a male and female youth team. Mitchell Hughes, NBN News.